Thank you, Zuma. Please do. Give her another round of applause. Thank you, Will and Zuma. Thank you. So now I'm delighted that I get to introduce our very special guest speaker this morning, Reverend Ruth Littlejohn. Reverend Ruth Littlejohn is an ordained religious science minister with Centers for Spiritual Living as an active member of the New Thought community since 1992. Reverend Ruth worked closely with her mentor, Reverend Sheila Pierce, to provide spiritual leadership for Spiritual Empowerment Center after the sudden transition of its founding minister, Reverend Paula Byfield. Also, she served as a remote staff minister for the Center of Peace. Her vision is to communicate, facilitate, and inspire wholeness. This vision propelled Reverend Ruth to move from Columbia, Maryland, to Virginia Beach, where she founded Hampton Roads Center for Spiritual Living, a science of mind community. The center provided spiritual tools and principles for transforming lives and is now known as Agape Hampton Roads Spiritual Center and is led by Reverend Victoria Thomas. In addition to her role of founding spiritual leader, Reverend Ruth has been active in her local area as a job coach with Marera E. Obendorf Central Library, a survey lecturer with ARE, Edgar Casey Center, and a member of interfaith group Hands United Building Bridges. Prior to relocating, Reverend Ruth worked as an independent organizational consultant and executive coach and served in leadership positions in several Fortune 500 companies and educational institutions. Her educational background includes 3 master's degrees: Master's in Consciousness Studies from Home Institute, Master's in Human Resources Development from American University /NTL, a Master's in Administration and Supervision from Lehigh University, and an undergraduate degree from Norfolk State University. Listen, Reverend Ruth has been with the Center of Peace before the Center of Peace was the Center of Peace. She was a part of the Center of Peace as a divine idea in the mind of God. She loves the Center of Peace just as much as anybody who proclaims to love the Center of Peace does. She was central in Reverend Sheila being the great Reverend Sheila, loving and supporting this community in the way that she did. She is a gem, and we love her. I love her. She has always been there for me and continues to pick up when I do call. She was here this weekend with us. She led our board in a board retreat. That was wonderful, phenomenal. And so I am delighted that she's here and bringing the message this morning. Would you please join me in welcoming Reverend Ruth?
Is that better? All right, all this technology. My endeavor was to bring my cell phone so I could read from it. But I've not gotten there yet, folks. I'm just saying. I do know how to use it, but reading from it does not work. So it is my pleasure to be here this morning, inspired by the work of Reverend Tawana and the board. I had a chance to spend time with the board this weekend, and as we would say, I was impacted by their Need more help? Okay. I was impacted by their commitment and the skill that they bring to this job. You know, it really moved me to see that these are people who are committed to seeing that the Center of Peace doesn't just stay on this corner, but everybody gets to experience it. So it was a great experience to do that. Let's see. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I always want to be clear that I stand here on the shoulders of my enslaved ancestor, Eric and Peter Littlejohn. My grandfather, Johnson Littlejohn, my mother, that's why I didn't get married, because she had so many husbands. What can I say? My mother, Hazel Littlejohn Haley Moore. And my paternal father, Andrew Creighton. Because, you know, when you show up here, all of those people are staying here, right here with me. So it is my pleasure to be here this morning and share with you about my life, which is what I know a lot about. You know, I can tell you about a lot of other people's lives, but I know a lot about this one. And what I want to share with you this morning is really around my vision and how it shows up sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. So that's what I wanted to make sure we got a chance to talk about. Reverend Tawana talked about my vision, which is really to communicate a wholeness to myself and to others. And when I talk about wholeness, I'm looking at how are we connected, mind, body, and spirit. How is all of that connected? So usually I'm looking at how does it work here, how does it work with my family, and how does it work with the community. So that's what I'm committed to. Now, I must tell you, I'm not going through puberty. Something is happening with my voice. I'm just saying. That when I think about doing this work, I am clear that there are things that I get stopped by. Now, let me just check, because I don't want to be in the wrong place. Are there some people here who get stopped by doing, you got things you want to do, but you get stopped? Okay, so this is the right place. You just know you don't want to be talking to the wrong audience. I'm just saying. And so when I think about the things that stop me, I think about this whole idea that I have of excuses. You know, excuses that I have that keep me from doing things. And one of the ones that I get tagged up with is that sometimes when I'm having conversations with myself, I get, I get feedback from ego. And you know how I know it's ego? Because it is somewhere. This is what you need to do. You need to buy those Ferragamo shoes. Now, that's definitely ego. That's not spirit, right? So anytime it says must, should, ought, we know that's ego. Now, spirit is just a gentle feeling that shows up that you move through. But that stops me. So I get hung up in that. Sometimes I get hung up in this whole idea of, you know, sometimes you have these, you know how you have things on your back and you try to make them match. So many of us have stuff we've done in life and we try to act like it's not even hanging anymore. We make it match our clothes and we just wear it like it fits, right? I'm just saying. So that stops me also. So I don't know if you have a bag, but you see I tried to match it. Because we don't want to know we got stuff that ain't working. So I'm just saying. So in my bag, one of the things I realize that I carry with me, I think some people call this a hoarder. And I hope I'm not the only one in the room that has this. I hoard unforgiveness. Anybody in here hoard that? Yeah. And what I notice about hoarding unforgiveness, it blocks my vibrational energy. Now, so imagine that this is your lifeline, and you got lots of knots in it. Can you see the energy coming through that? Can you see that? And that's what we carry. And so I hoard mine. Of course, it's in a nice bag. You don't see it, right? And so I'm just wondering how many of us are hoarding unforgiveness. And a lot of my unforgiveness is about me. It's about me. Stuff that happened years ago. When I flunked out of Howard. Now, how many years ago was that? 1966. And I'm still beating myself up about it. So just really looking at what that is, that stops me. The hoarding of the forgiveness. And this is just a lifeline. I have lots of knots in it. And usually these knots are unforgiveness. Now, am I the only one that have knots in it? Like I said, I don't want to be in the wrong place now. I'm just saying. Yeah. So so the goal is when I can forgive myself, my vibrational energy gets to flow. Can you see that? If we've got lots of knots, we wonder why we're so tired. Our vibrational energy is very low. So I'm always looking, okay, girlfriend, what is it you need to let go of now? And so one of the things that I got in touch with that I needed to let go of were relationships. You know, all these nice men, they all couldn't have been bad. You know what I mean? It's like something was going on with you, girlfriend. All of them couldn't have been bad. So really, I got in touch with, he was not bad. He was being who he was being. I just was not being my best self with him. There was no physical violence, but I was not being my best self with him. And so it took me about a year to write about that. And what did that look like? That looked like him being his magnificent self and me not being clear about what I wanted, not being clear about boundaries, not being clear about what I wanted to learn. And so it took a whole year to really write that down and then actually send it to him and have a conversation. But can you see just getting that kind of knot? Can you see the energy, vibration that comes up? Now, nobody's shown up yet, I'm just saying, but but I just did it. I just did it last year, I'm just saying. So you got, Spirit says you got to give it time. You got to give it time. So those are the kinds of things that I have in my bag. Now, I don't know about you. You want to think about what is it that I'm holding on to? And it's so well done, it's matched. We can't even, it doesn't stand out for us. But that's one of the ones that keeps me from moving. The other thing that I do from time to time is when I am guided to do something. For instance, over the years, I'm moving to the third part of my life. You know how that is, the third part? That's the part closer to 80. Yeah. And there are things that Spirit keeps saying for me to do. Because we all show up here with a little vial, which are our gifts. And it's concentrated. So we use a little bit, and we think it's all used up. And so what Spirit said to me was, girlfriend, you're still here. So you have more to do. You have more gifts to share. Now, of course, I'm bargaining. Well, Spirit, don't you think that when I opened the center in Hampton Roads, don't you think that was enough? And I asked Spirit, but you're still here. So really just getting clear how I was avoiding wanting to do the work that I'm called to do, which is doing the coaching with women that are 45 and older, and also working with sinners. So that's the work that I'm called to do. But I notice how I have just danced around it is the piece that I'm noticing. And also I notice how the other way I stop myself, I get busy. It's interesting, I'm trying to work on this coaching, and what did I decide I want to do? I want to start a spiritual circle. It's like, now, sister girl, why do you want to start a spiritual circle? Why can't you work on what you're working on? Because that's how I stop myself. I come up with other stuff that sounds good. Doesn't spiritual circle sound good? Yeah. I'm just saying. No. It sounded good to me. So those are the kinds of things that stop me. And what I know is the work of Science of Mind, the work of this center, allows me to be exposed to the practices and principles that allow me to move past those. So I have a spiritual coach that I work with where we can talk about where I'm being stopped. I use spiritual practices that we have, meditation, visioning, all the other exercises. I feel mind, body, spirit, so I do that, prayer, working with people. Because the spiritual practices, and somebody said to me, I help people with spiritual practice. Well, how come you have to do it all the time? Well, you know, when I check with Steph Curry, I don't know him, but I notice he does practices all the time. All the time? Yeah. And when I was living here, well, he practices, but sort of not all the time. But see, the thing is that there are different ways of practicing. He didn't practice the way his coach wanted him to practice, but he did practice. So the thing is, when we talk about spiritual practices, are we willing to do it all the time? Because that's the work that allows me to get past the things that stop me. So that's one of the, I think, powerful pieces that I've worked with. The other thing that has helped me is, you know, Ernest Holmes says, if you and I can change the way we what? Think. We can change our lives. Yeah. Now, that sometimes gets a little crazy because you know how you change the way you think on Monday and then Tuesday you're back? That's not what Dr. Holmes meant. That's called flip-flop, folks. Dr. Holmes really wanted us to actually use practices to support us, the affirmations to support us. And so that's the work that I have been excited about. That's the work that the center does. I mean, I think everybody who's here got a bonus. You found that place where you can now use skills and people can support you in living the life that you were brought to do. You were meant to live. And so that's the gift, I think, of Centers for Spiritual Living. It's the gift of Center of Peace. So that's the work that continues to excite me about the possibilities. And so when I was starting the Hampton Road Center for Spiritual, we had 2 members from this community, Donna and her sister, and Debbie. They showed up. They were not on the rolls, but they showed up all the time in Virginia Beach. So felt grateful to do that. And also felt grateful that people who came through the center, lives got changed. People thrived through cancer. People who had been out of school for years went back to school. We had 2 people who went through a sexual transition in the center. So really an environment where people were helped and felt supported. And so that's the work that I was committed to and still am committed to. As I was telling the group yesterday, sometimes when you do things, it's being willing to know, to be guided. This is guided. Because see, in somebody's mind will say, well, if you started the church, how come you're still not there? Because that's what normal people would do, right? You would start a church and you would stay there, right? But normal is not my name. All right, so I am the kind of person who's divinely guided. In about 5 years, I got divinely guided. Well, you know, this is working. It's organized. You need to let the board know that you're going to be resigning. Also, look, you can imagine the feedback. So my willingness to be who I am in the midst of no agreement is the other piece that allows me to get unstuck and to celebrate. So the point I'm saying is that we all don't have to do things the same way. And so as I'm living this vision called facilitating, communicating wholeness for myself and others, is being willing to stand out, to be different, and to use the various tools we have to not to be stopped. So usually I'm working with myself, also working with families. I think as a community there is a commitment for those of us who are in this teaching to start to work on what we call generational healing. You know, generational healing. And you know how you can tell whether you had generational unhealing stuff in your family? When people don't talk about stuff. You know how you have those what I call transactional conversations? They call them weather reports. Yeah. How you doing? That's called a weather report. And so we know, so we're not going to talk about Uncle John. I had 8 uncles, and let me just say, they were very handsome, and they shared their sperm very freely. But think about the generational part. Think about slavery. What does slavery suggest in that situation? You were moved from place to place. So not like an excuse, but it's understanding that. And so how do you and I, as Science and Mind people, support that generational healing? And the issue is we only have to do it once. And so I was sharing with Reverend Tawana, I had a young, my nephew had been married 2 years. I guess the men in my family just move a lot, you know what I mean? He had a one-night stand, what can I say? And the young lady called him and said, my husband and I are divorcing, and he says he doesn't think this child is his. So they got a DNA and they realized it was not. So can you see the generation, my 8 uncles, who left their sperm around, and now here's an opportunity. And so when we talk about generational healing, we only have to do it once. He decided to take that young man, who was 2 years old, and raise him. And 2 weeks ago, we were at that young man's graduation. Yeah. That's called generational healing, folks. Yeah. And I certainly thanked his wife, because can you imagine being married to somebody in 2 years and they told me, we got a son? Yeah. So really grateful for her. So I say that because sometimes we think about how can we make the family different. If we can shift that one space, that will shift the family interest. The other place in our family, because my commitment is to communicate and facilitate wholeness for myself, for our family, and our community, is looking at the whole idea of Pregnancy. How did that happen? Of course, this is an old conversation. I'm going to cancel it because this generation, they don't have an order about when it happens. You know what I mean? Back in the day, I was born before my mother was married. You can imagine there was a mortal sin, right? And she dropped out of school and all kinds of stuff happened. But that conversation doesn't even work these days. These young ladies, these people do it in any order that they want. Yeah. So I'm going to cancel. I'm going to release that one. I'm going to release that one. But my point is, how do we get stopped? And are there places that you get stopped? And who's going to support you when you get stopped? What spiritual practice do you have to support you as you're getting stopped? What are you committed to? I heard you talking about social justice. My commitment with social justice is to have change be cheaper. How can I work to have change be cheaper, if I could say it, cheaper? What do I mean by that? Think about the change we've had. People have lost their lives. People have died so we could have where we are right now. So how can you and I do work that has change be cheaper? And so a lot of the work I'm working with others and centers doing is really finding ways to create uncomfortable conversations that allow people to move forward. How can I have an uncomfortable conversation that allows me to get in touch with my biases, my internalized racism, my internalized oppression? How can we, so that's what I see my work as. So my intention this morning was really to talk to you about the places that I get stopped and how this work supports me in moving forward. And hopefully giving you some opportunity to look at where you get stopped. You might not, maybe you don't get stopped, I'm just saying. But look at where you might get stopped and what's possible in moving forward. And the gift of this center is that there are people here who can help you. There are tools that are available. And I think that is the joy of the work that we have, that we do here. You can get coaching through the practitioners. And I became, you can't be a minister without being a practitioner, so obviously I was a practitioner, right? And the thing that was about practitioner was that it wasn't a usual kind of thing. My life has not been usual. And so can we be willing to do things that are not usual? So most practitioners, you go right through school, right? It didn't happen with me. Home office called and said, we have people from all around the country. Can we just have a practitioner class that meets once a month? And that's how I became a practitioner. I met once a month. Yeah. So being clear about what your vision is, being clear about how you get stopped, and how the principles here allow us to be supported. And you don't have to have a bag that matches. And how do you and I increase our vibration? Because that's really, if you think about how you feel tired and disappointed, it is about our vibration. In my experience, it is the knots of unforgiveness that I have that I need to look at. And so it's been my pleasure to speak with you. I trust something made sense. And I am just, I know wherever Reverend Sheila is, she's touched, moved, and inspired by where you are and how this unfolds. And as I look at Reverend Tawana, I'm always, if you can imagine, when we first met, she would come to meetings and sit in the corner and wouldn't talk to nobody. And who would have thought that she would have decided to do this work? But you just don't know. You know, our parents said that you were touched. You know how they said, well, I was early on, as I was 6 years old, I was moved that I was going to be a minister. That didn't happen to me. I was like 46, and they were still trying to say, well, didn't you finish ministerial school? Yeah. So my point is your willingness to be guided, to be a part of this community that is really to support you in living the life that you were meant to live. Knowing that there's a oneness that happens here. There's a joy, there's a freedom. And so I'm just simply grateful to have been with you and trust that something I said will inspire you to get rid of your bag and live fully as oneness. And so it is. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. understanding we want to be moving into prayer. So however that works for you, sometimes I always suggest we put our feet flat on the floor if that works for you. Close your eyes if you feel safe. And we simply are moving into that space of knowing the truth of who we are. That we're here representing the divine, that we're whole and complete. There's nothing that keeps us from being whole and complete, magnificent, joyful. And so we simply celebrate that here in this amazing building with this amazing energy and leadership. We say thank you, Spirit, for this golden opportunity to be present this day in this moment, knowing that all is in divine right order. I know we move forward from this space with a sense of new possibilities in our lives, remembering our oneness, remembering those things that we let go of, embracing our sacred yes, and knowing that just where we are, divine right action is happening. So I know that today continues to unfold in a powerful way, new possibilities shows up, and there is a sense of love and peace that shows up in life. As we move through where we're going in our country, we see unconditional love and peace showing up around us, in us, as we stand forward, knowing that whoever we see, they too are spirit. So we simply see the divine spirit in them. So we're grateful for this time together, grateful for the music, for the readings, and each person who showed up here this morning to have this center be open, available, and powerful. So I know when you move forward, new possibilities show up. You let go of your bag. You're willing to move forward in a powerful way and share. So for this and so much more, I say thank you, Spirit. Thank you for this golden opportunity to be present with these amazing, divine, spiritual beings. And so from a place of deep appreciation, I simply say thank you. And so it is. Aho, Ashe.
Yes, and so as we journey on throughout our week, remember what the good Reverend has shared with us this morning. Stop the excuses. Your life depends on it, and we do too. And so it is.